If you were able to communicate telepathically, would you still have the desire to speak normally? Well, the higher beings of the Lord of the Rings universe had to ask themselves this question, and that's why they created Valarin. If you didn't know, the Valar are like the Greek gods of the Legendarium, because there is something or someone higher up than them, the father of all existence. In this case it's Eru Ilúvatar, but they still possess some powers that are unachievable to mortals, and that's why they are often worshipped by them. So, Valarin, it's pretty fascinating. Although it's not the most prominently covered language in the works of Mr. Tolkien, we still know, surprisingly, a lot about it. So, think about it. If you were a divine being with near limitless talents and abilities, which presumably includes vocal ones, how would you like to sound? Turns out, even elves, the Middle-Earth's greatest linguists, were a bit weirded out by Valarin. It definitely sounded odd, sometimes also described as unpleasant. This kind of makes sense. The Valar only spoke this language around each other, and coming back to the opening question, I, as a godlike being, would like to speak both quickly and powerfully, sound both deeply and smoothly, and communicate both confidently and humbly. So that's what the Valar wanted as well, at least based on my assumptions. For example, look at this word, which is my best attempt at pronouncing it. Well, it described an ancient white tree of the domain of the Valar. But before we get to all that, we have to quickly go through the creation, the process, starting at the origin of all time, the year 1937. This was the year when Mr. Tolkien wrote Lamas, a short text on the linguistic origins of his Elvish languages. There, he proposed that all of them, and pretty much all of Middle-Earth's tongues, sparked from only one, the language of the gods, who, well, basically taught mortals how to read and write. Great idea, right? You could even say magnificent. And Mr. Tolkien shared this opinion for a couple of years. After that, he dropped this whole backstory along with the name for Valarin, the content of which has been repurposed as a different, primitive Elvish language. Then, boom, 1960, Mr. Tolkien dropped an essay titled Quendi and Eldar, where we saw our first glimpses of the reborn Valarin. It may have been based on ancient Babylonian or a bit of Mongolian, like some people assume it to be, but hey, it's not the time for guessing, it's time for the internal history. We've already covered a bit of that. Gods, telepathy, nah fam, we are incarnate, we wanna live in a material world, make a language, speak like gods are supposed to sound, learn Quenya to communicate with elves and other races, and done. Well, I'm not here to bore you, I'm here to show you some cool Valarin words that sound out of this world. So let's go through this quickly. So, Valarin can be thought of as the first real, tangible sort of language. It had grammar, pronunciation rules, stuff like that, and I believe it might be the only language in the Legendarium which has no roots and isn't related to any other language. I guess it makes sense since it literally came out of this world, outside of Arda. Remember also that we're now talking about the second concept for Valarin, the one in which Elvish was not based on it. Only in this context does all of this make sense. But only after the primitive versions of Elvish, Dwarvish and Mannish languages had been created, only then Valarin started influencing them. And let me tell you, it was like a mediocre influencer. Made some short-form content and left a really small mark on this world. On that world. In all seriousness though, I love this stuff, because Quenya borrowed quite a few words from Valarin, and it even made its way into some more obscure languages. We have a lot of golden etymology content to explore. Let's do it, shall we? Welcome to your crash course on Valarin etymology, and kind of the whole grammar. We have some special characters right off the bat, like the diphthong ash, or these two signs straight from the Old English and Norse languages. I did some research on them. It turns out they originate from runes, which themselves originate from drawings. So cool! If you didn't know, those are real letters still in use in some languages today. Or we have the sound G, straight from Black speech and Orcish, here being represented by something like the number 3. Now, of course, we know next to nothing about verb conjugations in this language, or of any sort of morphemes. We are really close, like we need to have just one big confirmed fact, and then the puzzle pieces should fall into place. Before that though, we have to be satisfied with the incredible Valarin words we have. I'll try my best to pronounce them. Let's see. Akashan refers to the Allfather, Eru, which changes its literal meaning of he says to rule or commandment. Get it? Aromes is the precursor to the Quenya name Orome, which was of course one of the highest deities representing hunting. His Quenya name literally means hornblower. See, we just need one tidbit about how this meaning translates to Valarin and we would be golden. Or look at this, Nekerra, the original name for Orome's horse, which in Quenya became Nahar. Pangaikelud was used to describe the moon. Presumably it means bright mirror. Makes sense, eh? Ulu, water, similar to Korean uyu, milk. Nice. Also, do you remember the word nask from Black speech? It was the word Sauron used to describe a ring in his language. Pretty important word for him, after all. Turns out, it was also taken from Valarin. The original word though was Nashka. See? Pretty close. And also we have Dahan Iguishtelgum, the Valarin name for Taniquetil, the highest mountain in all of Arda. Well, it definitely deserves this name. Oh man, I love all this. This truly feels like an ancient, fully constructed language we know just pieces of. Maybe one day we'll be able to learn more, but for now, we are done with the Valar. Oh man. Okay, thank you so much for being here. Of course, I wasn't able to cover everything here, but I hope that now you feel at least a bit inspired to read more about this language, which still has a lot of secrets, I'll have you know, but also any other language or mystery you may be interested in. Put on some good music and get to it, because who knows, you may come out of it knowing how to speak like fantastical, angelic beings. And that's cool AF. Well, for now, see you soon.